The spring of 1945 was the end of the road for Adolf Hitler. Europe was in ruins. The Allies were closing in from all sides, and Berlin had become a broken city of rubble, fear, and shadows. Deep beneath the Reich Chancellery, in a fortified, underground bunker, the man who once held the world in terror now sat surrounded by betrayal, despair, and the sound of approaching artillery. The official story says that on April 30th, 1945, as the Red Army advanced through the heart of Berlin, Hitler took his own life. He supposedly shot himself in the head while biting down on a cyanide capsule, while his longtime companion Eva Braun, whom he had married just hours before, ended her life beside him. Their bodies, according to witnesses, were burned in the garden just outside the bunker, as per Hitler's own instructions. And yet, decades after the war, this moment in history remains clouded in doubt, suspicion, and conspiracy. Did Hitler really die that day in the Führer bunker? Or did he escape, slipping through the cracks of chaos, vanishing into the world like smoke from a fire? Theories began almost immediately. The Soviets, who first entered the bunker and took possession of the scene, were suspiciously secretive. No public photographs of Hitler's corpse were released. No concrete proof. Just ashes, claims, and statements made behind closed doors. Stalin himself told Western leaders that he believed Hitler had escaped. For a man who had every reason to celebrate Hitler's death, why would he cast doubt on it? Some suggested that the man who died in the bunker was a body double. That in the final days, as paranoia and delusion gripped Hitler, he had used lookalikes to deceive even those closest to him. The idea was not far-fetched. Hitler had employed doubles during public appearances to guard against assassination attempts. Could one of those men have died in his place? Eyewitnesses from the bunker later gave detailed accounts of the final days, but even those testimonies were conflicting. Some described hearing a single gunshot. Others said both Hitler and Eva had taken cyanide. Some claimed the bodies were partially burned. Others said there was barely anything left to identify. Without a preserved body, the story was easy to question. Then came the rumors. Reports from South America. Whispers of sightings in Argentina. Stories of German submarines slipping away from collapsing Europe, carrying Nazi officers, stolen gold, and high-ranking fugitives to hidden colonies in the Andes. In towns like Bariloche, with their quaint alpine architecture and strong German communities, stories grew like weeds. People swore they had seen Hitler. He was older, grayer, but unmistakable. The FBI received countless tips, letters from informants, secret files, blurry photos. One report detailed an entire Nazi compound in Argentina protected by former SS officers, with Hitler at the center, living under an alias. It sounded absurd, but in the shadows of the Cold War, nothing was impossible. After all, many Nazi scientists were absorbed by the West through secret operations like Paperclip. If they could disappear, so could their leader. Skeptics argue that Hitler's mental and physical state made escape unlikely. In his final weeks, he was trembling, paranoid, delusional. He rarely left the bunker, and his body showed signs of severe deterioration. Could such a man truly orchestrate a great escape beneath the eyes of the most powerful armies on Earth? Still, the possibility lingered. The very absence of clear proof, the lack of a body, the secrecy of the Soviets, the conflicting stories, left room for doubt. And in that doubt, stories flourished. Books were written. Documentaries were filmed. Eyewitnesses emerged from villages, claiming to have met the German or lived near the man with the mustache who never showed his face in public. Whether truth or fantasy, the idea that Hitler escaped struck a chord. Evil, after all, is a story we never want to leave unfinished. And so, while historians point to evidence of suicide, others still wonder if the monster simply walked away into the fog of history. The Soviets claimed they had found Hitler's charred remains, and based on dental records provided by his dentist assistants, they confirmed it was him. But suspicions remained. Stalin himself told Western leaders at the Potsdam Conference that he believed Hitler had escaped. It was not a claim made lightly, and it fueled decades of speculation. Soon, stories began to circulate. Whispers of submarines leaving German ports just before surrender, carrying high-ranking Nazis to South America. Witnesses in Argentina, Brazil, and even Chile claimed to have seen a man matching Hitler's appearance. In one of the most controversial reports, the FBI itself had files detailing potential sightings of Hitler in Argentina years after 1945. One file included a letter from an informant who claimed Hitler was alive, living in the Andes, protected by loyal Nazis and locals. Photographs emerged, grainy, indistinct, but still convincing to some. A man with a similar mustache, a similar gait, living a quiet life under a false name. The question kept resurfacing. Could one of the most watched men in history truly disappear? Those who believe he escaped point to the lack of a body. The Soviets, they argue, had every reason to lie, either to claim victory or to keep the mystery alive for their own geopolitical advantage. Others claim the bodies found were misidentified or never properly tested. In fact, DNA analysis performed decades later on a skull fragment once believed to be Hitler's revealed it belonged to a woman. That one detail reignited all the old theories, but skeptics push back hard. They argue that Hitler was not the kind of man to accept humiliation or capture. His ideology, his pride, his narcissism, none of it aligned with the idea of hiding in a remote village, aging in anonymity. Eyewitnesses in the bunker, including his personal valet and secretary, described the suicide in detail. They recalled the sound of a single gunshot, the smell of cyanide, and the sight of his body slumped on the couch next to Eva Braun. They described how his body was wrapped, carried outside, and burned in the garden of the Reich Chancellery. Then there's the question of logistics. Berlin was encircled. Even with underground tunnels, escaping unnoticed would have required an impossible level of coordination. Allied forces had eyes everywhere. The air was filled with watchful drones, surveillance, and human intelligence. Could Hitler really have evaded all of that? Still, proponents of the escape theory point to Operation Paperclip, where hundreds of Nazi scientists were quietly absorbed into the United States post-war programs, as proof that secrets were kept, deals were made, and truths were hidden. If that was possible, then why not Hitler's escape? Psychologically, too, the idea of Hitler escaping served a purpose. It provided a boogeyman for the post-war world, a symbol of unfinished business, and for many, a justification for vigilance and continued military strength. It was easier for some to believe he might still be out there, because that meant the war wasn't truly over, that the fight between good and evil still had an enemy to chase. In the years that followed, many documentaries, books, and even television series explored this mystery. Some searched jungles, some dived into old Nazi hideouts in Argentina, Paraguay, and Bolivia. They uncovered communities of German immigrants with suspicious connections, hidden bunkers in the forests, even untouched swastika-adorned mansions in remote locations. The stories were chilling, seductive, and they never quite ended. Even as time passed and the world moved on, the question lingered. Was Hitler truly defeated in that underground bunker? Or did he watch the world forget, from a quiet exile, until nature took him, anonymously, unpunished, and unseen? The mystery remains unsolved, the lines between history and myth forever blurred. Truth, in this case, may be stranger than fiction, or perhaps exactly what fiction has always inspired: a world where evil doesn't always die when we expect it to.